Hello, everyone. Hi. Nice to see so many beautiful faces here. Thanks for joining the Psychology Department and Student Activity Department's event, Psychology of Money. Who in here has ever had an issue with money? Good, I'm not alone. Okay. I work full time, and yet the childhood part just seems, I forever have felt like a college student, or those childhood memories and feelings just linger, right? So that's why we're here, right? To explore our hidden, unconscious perceptions, experiences, and beliefs about money, right? Is everybody in the right place? Okay. So we have a fabulous guest speaker that is professed in this area. Her name is Kadidja Yansane, and she's a life coach, which is similar to a therapist. If anybody's interested, you can explore. There's life coaching programs throughout the nation. Some are online, some are in person. And you develop a life coach has similar training to therapists. So what Ms. Yansane brings is a healing force to, instead of shame us and blame us of how we've treated money, to instead gently guide us to become more aware of where we get stuck around money, so that we can grow and heal and ultimately use money in a life force way that is aligned with what we want and who we are as people. Does that make sense? So this is not a shameful kind of event. This is a healing event. She has her own business. She can provide that website later if you're interested. She gives private life coaching trainings and sessions. She has group sessions. So if her work resonates with you, please explore her website. Talk to her after the workshop. And we wish you the best with your relationship with money.
Hi everyone, how are you today? Thank you so much for coming out. I know a lot of you are here for extra credit, but I'm hoping that you're excited to explore this topic further. And even though this is part of my life's work, it's something that I'm in progress with as well. And so I'm hoping that we can explore. I'm going to spend some time talking, but I really want this to be interactive. So just to give you an outline for the day, this is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what is the psychology of money? Like, why am I even bringing that up? How is that relevant to you and your life? You're going to explore your own relationship to money. And the truth is, we all have a relationship with money, even if this is the first time that you're actually thinking about it. And you're like, what are you talking about, a relationship to money? I don't have a relationship to money. We're going to look at unconscious beliefs, right? So why are they unconscious? Because it means that it's outside of our conscious awareness, right? And so some of the exercises that we're going to do today are going to allow you to bring that to the forefront, because if you're aware of them, then you can change, right? We aren't going to take a break today, but feel free to take care of yourself. And if you need to go to the bathroom or have something to drink, please do so. I'm getting over a cold. I have 2 little ones who breathe in their snot on me, so I'll be sipping my tea. And then we're also going to learn about the 8 sacred money archetypes. There's 8 of them. And it's the ruler, the celebrity, the alchemist, the connector, the accumulator. And I'm going to share with you at the end how you can take the quiz yourself and find out what your sacred money archetype and what that means. So, what is the psychology of money? How you think about money. Because what is psychology, right? It's the science and the study of the mind. And someone else brought about value. So money is a measure of value. So I'm going to give you $10 and you're going to give me a certain number of groceries. I'm going to go to this place for a $40 massage, but if I went to the Claremont Hotel, it might be $200 for a massage. And so someone might say, ooh, I'd rather go spend $200 and have a luxury experience at the Claremont Hotel. And somebody else might say, I just want to spend $40 for you to take the knots out, right? So value, we're constantly exchanging value all the time. So you guys were all right. Psychology of money is the way the mind thinks about value. And it's so personal and unique to each of us. So what you value is not the same thing that what you value. So why is this important? So I think it's important because the way we think about money impacts how much or how little we have and our experience of it, right? So this doesn't just apply to money, it also applies to anything in our life. So if I walk around saying, I'm not a good student, I'm always late, I don't get math. So I'll tell you one of mine. Oh my God, I'm not good with technology. So I've got a clicker, I'm maneuvering things. And so how does that impact my experience of technology? So I'm just gonna repeat this again because I think it's a really important one. The way we think about money impacts how much or how little we have and our experience of it. And I really want you to think about this, because we're going to talk about in a few minutes about our money dialogues. Like, we always have dialogues going on in our head all the time. So something could be like, okay, you came up with $40, and at the end of the day, you're like, how do I only have $37? I'm so bad with money. Did I really need to go and buy that? And so the story goes on. And so we're beating up on ourselves. And so I love what Sarah said, is that we're wanting to bring awareness and compassion to how we relate to money. So if we're aware of our internal money dialogue, then we can change it if it's not supporting what we want, right? So if you're actually someone that wants to be really great with money, that you want to start tracking your spending, that you want to start being someone that saves and plans for the things that you want. Like, if you have the approach of, I may not know how to do this, but I can learn. My friend did this, maybe she can teach me. If this person did it, maybe I can do it too. So when we slow down, which we'll be doing a writing exercise shortly, you get to bring some of that mental dialogue to the forefront. And finally, we're gonna have to deal with money. There's no getting around it. You can love money, you can hate money. Every single person in this room has to deal with money. Maybe you open your wallet, there's nothing there. Maybe you open your wallet, you've got a few pennies. Maybe you're the type of person who always has a $100 bill in their wallet and who always has cash. Maybe you're the person who's like, I gotta stop at the ATM. So we are going to have to deal with money. You're at school, you've gotta pay for tuition. You have to pay for books, you have to pay to get here, and even if you have a full scholarship, someone's paying it. So there's no escaping having to deal with money. And so what if we can try to be friends with money, right? So another question to you guys. Where does your relationship to money come from? Where do you think your relationship to money comes from? Yes.
Parents.
Parents. Those parents. Social constructs. I also heard someone over here say society. Yes. Anyone else? Life experiences. Friends. Yes. Yes. Your partner. You guys are so smart. Parents. Your parents or your caregivers, they're our first teachers, right? We learn everything from them. We learn how to, and I have a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. I recently saw my daughter crossing her leg, and I'm like, where did you get that from? Why are you crossing your leg? But we are creatures of habit, and we follow what our parents do, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So maybe there are a lot of things that you really appreciate about your parenting styles. You know, like, we just have these unconscious habits that we have. Maybe you wash the dishes a certain way, or maybe you put the toilet paper a certain way. Like, where did you learn that? Most likely from your parents or the relationships, people you're around. Society, that's a big one. You know, now we're in the age of social media, and you're at school. You guys are at school. College careers play such a huge impact on the way you think about money. You can't just have a computer. You need a Mac, right? And it just can't be a Mac. It has to be, and I'm not really good with all that kinds of stuff, but what's the latest version of Mac? Can someone tell me?
Just say 10.
Mac 10. It's got to be a Mac 10, right? And then a Mac 11. Experiences. So yes, all the experiences that you have with money. You know, maybe you wanted to buy something in the store and you were ashamed for wanting to buy something. All the experiences that you have, experiences in relationships. So I'm in a relationship, I'm married, say hi, Mike. But relationships are a huge one. So how is dating now? When you go to pick up the tab, is it really clear that it's the guy who's supposed to pay? And like, you could be having this whole dialogue in your head. I'm just gonna take both sides, right? So the woman's like, well, he should really pay because he asked me out. But is it rude if I don't take out my wallet? But maybe I should just take out my wallet and he'll pay for it anyway. Dialogue, right? Let's say the guy's like, oh, I really like this person. I really like this man. I really like this woman. But I spent my last $40. Like, I only have like $15 for this date. Are they gonna think I'm really cheap if I don't pay? Dialogue, internal money dialogue. But you know, I'll just pay it because then maybe she won't go tell her friends that I'm really cheap and don't have any money. Friends and family. Like, think about the friends that you've had in your life. Maybe there was the friend who always could afford to do everything. Or maybe you went to another friend's house and they were in deprivation and you know, it's hard to find a pen or a notebook. Coworkers, I think someone mentioned coworkers as well. Same thing, all of these relationships, all of our life is based on relationships. Relationships with people at school, with relationships with people at work, intimate relationships, our parents. All these experiences that we have impact how we feel about money. And they all create something called your money story. And so just like I said, we each have a relationship to money, we also have a relationship to our unique money story. And it's so unique for each of us. So at this point, we are gonna take, in a few minutes, we're gonna take some time to write out how you feel about money. But I found a really great book that I really love. It's called The Art of Money. It's by Barry Tesler, and she talks about your money story in this way. So she says that your money story represents the entirety of your relationship to money. It includes the historical facts of your financial life, inherited patterns from your family of origin, which we've talked about a little bit, right? What you saw your parents doing, was your father the provider or was your mother the provider? Or maybe you grew up with your grandmother. Did you have the basic needs but you really didn't have enough to do fun things? Or did you find that your family went on vacation every year and your parents were able to pay for your college? Everyone's experience is different. And how you take on or rebel against them and integrate your own beliefs and behaviors around money. So we tend to do exactly what we see, and sometimes we do the opposite, right? So maybe you're like, wow, well the lights got cut off way too many times, and that's never gonna happen to me. So I always pay my PG&E early, right? So that kind of discussion and internal dialogue. And lastly, the importance of your money story is that it's all the sensations and emotions that get stirred up around money. And so I love that she talks about sensations because we can actually have a physical reaction to money, right? Like you get a call and you didn't know you owed some money and maybe you just got a refund and that refund has to go to fixing the car or daycare or some unexpected expense, and then you can feel really hot, upset, like you want to throw up. It can also make you feel really excited, like, woohoo, I just got this money, how am I going to spend it? right? I've been wanting to get that new phone or that new pair of shoes or whatever it is. So we are going to spend about 10 minutes writing about how you feel about money. And I just have some prompts for you to think about. So you could write about how do you feel about earning, saving, and or spending. So some people might be like, I'm a really good saver, I have no problem getting a job, or you might be like, wow, I spend more than I get. How is it possible that I spend more than I get? You can write about what you've been taught about money, what you saw growing up, what you heard. You can also write about if you feel good about your relationship to money or if you want things to change. And if you do want things to change, how would you like to see them change? So an archetype, like she said, is a model or a theme. And like she said, they represent patterns of behaviors or ideas that are a part of our collective unconscious. And I know Sarah and a lot of the teachers here, you talk about Carl Jung in your psychology classes, and he was the one that coined the term the unconscious collective, the collective unconscious. And basically it refers to the structure of the unconscious mind, which are shared among beings of the same species. And for that, we're humans. And so we have this collective unconscious. And so what makes archetypes so special is that people around the world immediately know what you're talking about when you talk about this character of the princess, this character of the bad boy. So if I say the bad boy, I'm seeing some smiles over here. You kind of get a sense of what that means, right? So no matter where you are in the world, if you talk about these things like the great mother or the wise sage, and we see them in Disney movies, so I love that you brought up film. It's this model, this theme that we all get. And so the sacred money archetypes, like I said, there are 8 of them. They each have their strengths and challenges. And similar to the archetypes, there are 8 symbolic representations of our patterns and behaviors around money. It's also a tool to reveal who we are so that we can become aware of and change our unconscious behaviors. I don't necessarily want to compare it to astrology, but I'm using astrology as an example is because it's like, oh, when people say, oh, that person's a Scorpio or a Pisces, we automatically think of these set of traits and behaviors, right? Who said Pisces? I'm a Pisces too. Raise your hand if you're a Pisces. Raise your hand if you're an Aquarius. Okay, I would go through all of them, but let's get back to work. So, like I said, it's a set of thoughts, perspectives, strengths, and challenges that we hold around money. And basically, it's a system that uncovers your personal traits and characteristics so you can play to your strengths and rather than your challenges. And so, like I said, each of them, we all have strengths and challenges around money, and we might not even be aware of them. So the first one we're going to talk about is the ruler. And the ruler is your inner empire builder. And so the ruler is someone, they represent your desire to achieve. Like they're the person that wants to get straight A's. They always want to go like as far as they can go. Money and success and achievement is how they measure success, right? So no matter what's happening in their life, like they're always on to the next marker. They really love to challenge themselves beyond their perceived limitations. And something that's coming up for mind is running, right? So it's like, okay, if you ran the mile in 6 minutes, you're always telling yourself, okay, I want to do 5 next time. How low can I take it? And they're often seen as a leader because of their drive and their ambition. You even see this in the classroom. You know, students that really want to excel in class and like, can I get an A+ next time? Because of this natural drive and ambition, it often causes them to feel dissatisfied with where they are, no matter what their past successes have been. So sometimes they can be moving so fast that they're already on to the next thing, and it's just like, wait a second, look at what you just achieved. So sometimes they just take for granted all the success that they've had because they're already moving on to the next thing. They can be really, really hard on themselves. You know, I actually had a client who was a college student, and each time we'd be talking, I was like, well, she was really worried about her grades. And I'm like, well, I was thinking like maybe she's getting a D in the class, and she's like at an A, but the way she was talking, I was like, is she failing? Does she need to talk to the teacher? But it's like they're really hard on themselves, right? So the way that we use the archetypes is you look at the challenges and you're like, okay, this is the tendency that you can go in. This is the shadow aspect of your archetype. And so for the ruler, their challenge is to create harmony in their life instead of letting their career, business, school dominate all of their time and attention, and learn how to relax into and enjoy life in the moment. And so some of you may have had parents who are working all the time, right? And so, you know, it could be a complaint with their kids that like, hey, I don't get to see you enough. I want to spend time with you. Can we go on vacation? Do you always have to be working when we're together as a family? So the next archetype we're going to talk about is the nurturer. And the nurturer illuminates caring and compassion. She's kind of like the great mother. And so their desire to be of service often inspires them to selflessly give. You know, they're constantly giving, giving, giving. And there's a part of them that really likes to do that, but there's a part of them that can feel taken advantage of. So they can help out those in need, even at the expense of their own time, energy, or financial stability. So, you know, sometimes people come and try to borrow money from them all the time, and they feel like they have to do it. You know, it's hard for a nurturer to say no. It's really hard for a nurturer to say no. They often create enabling relationships and struggles trying to create boundaries. So sometimes, like just think of a nurturer who feels like they're helping someone with a habit. Like, well, if I don't let them stay at my house, then they might end up in the street. So you let them stay at your house. And you think that you're helping them, but then that person feels like, oh, well, I don't really have to change because this person's always going to save me. So that's what the nurturer does. They feel like, well, they feel like they can't turn that person away. And the thing that I want to say here, not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but the challenge for the nurturers, they do it beyond their limitations, right? It's not uncommon for nurturers to create debt because of giving money to other people. They can be pretty good with money, but sometimes because they have a hard time saying no, they can go into debt because of their nurturing capacity. And they can feel depleted in their own life. Like, I don't have anything else to give. I'm always giving to everyone. Everyone comes to me for what they need. And they can seem really kind and supportive, which they are, but then they start to feel taken advantage of, and then they can feel angry and resentful. And they feel like people aren't respecting them. So can anyone, like, do you see yourself in the nurturer, or do you see the nurturer in anyone you know? I see a hand up, I hear a few yeses. Yeah, I want you to look on, I know you haven't taken the test yet, but I'll be showing you how you can take the quiz. But as I go through these types, see if you see yourself inside of this archetype, or if you see someone you know in this archetype. It's actually really fun when you start to see, like, so, and I'll tell you my type and my husband's type, but once you start to play with these, you're like, oh, okay. So the nurturer's challenge is to discover how to create boundaries and to believe that by creating boundaries, they are empowering others in ways that are priceless. So they don't realize that they're actually being a gift by saying no when they really mean no, that the other person's gonna find their strength, right? So the romantic. So the romantic is your inner hedonist. They are all about pleasure. They want to live life in the moment. They want to spend on life's pleasures such as food, clothes, toys, experiences, and more. So anything that gives them this sense of gratification, of sensory pleasure, you know? Money is not often at the top of their mind. Like, do you know anyone in your life who's like, you know, life is too short. You don't know if you're gonna be here tomorrow. I might get in a car accident on the way home, so I'm gonna have fun tonight. I'm not gonna study for that test tonight because, you know, life is great. I might not wake up in the morning. So that's the kind of energy. which is also great because sometimes we take for granted that we've been given this gift of life, you know? And so that's the gift of the romantic. And money can be seen as a distraction to them. So the thought of not buying something can cause feelings of resistance or defiance in a romantic. And that can so it's kind of like the diet. You know, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go on a diet and I'm not gonna eat any bread, any this for a week, and then all of a sudden you want it more. So that's kind of how the romantic operates. They're only motivated to save money when there's something specific they wanna buy. So like maybe they wanna save for a trip. Maybe they want to save for a couch, or there's some type of fancy thing that they want. They can gather their resources to get it. But as soon as they get it, they forget about saving. So they get this rush of oh, I want this, target, aim, purchase, and then they deplete their, done, thank you. They typically live above their means and often tell themselves they're not good with money. And so remember we're talking about the more I tell myself, oh no, technology, the more I have an experience of, feeling weird with technology. Same thing with the romantic. The more that you tell yourself you're not good with money, the more you have an experience of not being good with money. So the challenge for the romantic is to avoid creating a feast or famine lifestyle, which is opposite to the pleasure they are seeking. So essentially that means, okay, oh my God, I just came into some money. Okay, let's party, woohoo! Let's go spend my money. Let's go out to eat, drinks for everyone, right? And then 2 weeks later, I'm so broke. I don't have any money. I can't even afford to go to class today, so I'm just gonna email the teacher to send me my homework, right? So that but the thing is that cycle is not pleasurable. And remember, their value is pleasure. So that money broke, money gets really tired, and so they want to heal that. Accumulator, who's your inner banker. So the accumulator is someone who typically lives well under their means. They're highly attentive to managing money, and they love to save just for the sake of saving and are naturally highly frugal. And so if you've been around children, there's some kids who just want to put pennies in the piggy bank and don't want to touch it. Whereas someone else is another kid is just oh, let me go buy some candy, let me go do this. So the accumulator is naturally frugal, and they like to save money, and they like to see it stacking up. So the romantic is let's spend it. The accumulator wants to see the reserves getting higher and higher. They can often be secretive with money and can quickly judge others for their spending or money habits. How could you spend money on that? I would never spend that amount of money on that. They're often driven by fear and can quickly feel at risk of not having enough money despite having plenty of resources. So again, we're talking a lot about the inner dialogue. So there's this conversation sometimes with the accumulator. They could have money in savings, they could have investment properties, and there's still this I don't have any money, I'm running out of money, if I spend my money. So there's their biggest fear is having to depend on other people and not being able to take care of themselves. So again, we want to put doses of compassion on all of this. And so as we explore this piece, so with an accumulator, be well, what's the evidence that you're going to run out of money? Right? So they can talk as though they're running out of money, similar to the student I was saying who, oh my God, you're talking as if you're about to fail the class, but you're actually going to get an accumulator. Sometimes spending small amounts of money can cause the accumulator to feel stressed, anxious, or guilty. They see it as their personal responsibility to make certain they can take care of themselves financially, and they don't want to have to trust anyone for their financial security. So that's a big thing for them. And so their challenge is to allow themselves to expand how big they see themselves, wow, I am really good at saving. Wow, I am really good at money. How can I enjoy life but still be responsible? So it's a gift to be responsible. It's a gift to be frugal. A lot of people mentioned earlier about, I want to do better at bookkeeping. Do you have any accumulator friends that can help you with your bookkeeping? So again, gifts and challenges to each archetype. Raise your hand if you see yourself inside the accumulator or you know someone who is. Awesome. So the next archetype is the connector. The connector. So the connector is your inner relationship creator. The connector is someone that is very happy, go lucky. They have this thing that money's always going to be available to them. And because of that attitude, they kind of stay free of financial stress. There is, say that again? Until they don't have money, right? So there's an innocent quality to them that on the positive side allows them to live their life worried, free of money concerns. So what's the downside to being a connector? It's that they can easily be taken advantage of. They're often in situations where they blindly trust the handling of financial details to others. So have you ever seen like little exposés on TV where they just trusted someone else? The wife or the husband just trusted a partner or a friend or their relationship with the handling of their money, right? This is something that connectors do. Like if they feel like they know you and trust you, then they're like, I just want you to handle it. Here's my bank card and bank information. So they can find themselves in situations where they rely on other people to support them. So for the connector, money is simply something they don't think too much about or care to think about, and they can harbor feelings of inadequacy or disempowerment. So their ultimate empowerment is going to come from when they focus on transforming their personal relationships into financial flow. So what that means is that a connector is someone that's really good with relationships. Do you have friends who are like, oh, I have a friend, they're going to get us into this club for free. Oh, I went to this restaurant, my friend's going to hook us up, we won't have to pay. So that's the type, like a connector's kind of popular and good with people, and people like them because of their positive energy, right? And so they're always doing things for them. So if they can transmute that into getting paid, it's only going to help them, the connector, right? Because they excel at creating relationships and partnerships that bring new opportunities, but they don't use their relationships for that, right? Because they say relationships are more important than money. So next up is the alchemist, and your alchemist represents your inner idealist. They have a love-hate relationship with money, and I heard someone mention that earlier today. You kind of like money, but you kind of don't. And they often speak with a vehemence against money or against the unfairness that exists in the world, where some people have so much more than others. And we kind of talked a little bit about that today. Like, everyone should have a place to live. Everyone should have food. Everyone should be able to wash their clothes. Like, it's just a normal part of our human dignity, right? So like the alchemist really cares about fairness, and they care about justice. And they just don't like to see the levels of poverty in the world, like extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Like there needs to be some type of answer, and the alchemist is the type of person that wants to figure out the answer. And the beauty about the alchemist is that they keep hope alive, right? They're like, there's some injustice here. They're amazing at creating ideas that can transform people's lives and transform the world at large. And even if they pursue business or their careers, they usually have an altruistic heart. They want to be of service. They want to give back. They're attracted to unconventional or alternative ways. They think outside the box, right? Which I see this a lot on college campuses, you know? Young people thinking outside of the box. It's really inspiring. So they can be upset with having to deal with money. They resent, there's resentment there. They resent that it's a powerful tool to use. But the thing is that there's a part of them that realizes that they need money to make the impact that they want to in the world, right? So it's that love-hate thing going on. They can find themselves in situations where they're dependent on others for money because maybe they're supporting cause. They're like working for nonprofits, they're not making any money, and someone else is helping them. Like if they run into an emergency, they have help from someone else. So they want to channel their energy into monetizing their ideas. So raise your hand if you think you might be an alchemist. Yeah, awesome. Maverick, your inner rebel with a cause. I think we've got about 3 more. So the Maverick is a rebel with a cause, right? Has anyone here been told they're a rebel without a cause? No. The Maverick is a rebel with a cause, and they're highly creative with money, and they love to turn it into the game they want to win. And it's so funny, I love reading this one because I have a friend that each time I talk to her, she's like on to this new business, right? I think some of you have heard that, right? Like, oh, now I want you to get in on this, and now I want you to get in on that. Or like they're the type of person that they might risk all the money that they have. Like there's like a gambling type of, I don't want to go as far as gambling because risk is good in business, right? But the gambling aspect is that they're willing to gamble all their money if they feel like, well, okay, I have $50,000. I'm willing to put all my money on the line if it's going to bring me 300. So that's how the Maverick thinks. They have a natural ability to understand and feel comfortable with complex money transactions, and they're often looking at how can I come on the up and up through this situation? Because of their willingness and comfort with taking risks, they can find themselves in precarious money situations that others would shy from. So if you're talking to a Maverick, you might find yourself thinking like, is that legal? Is that okay? And yes, they're on the up and up, but like that's kind of what you're thinking about with the Maverick. Is that my mic?
Yes.
It is? It's the signal? The system, okay. So similar to the romantic, Mavericks often experience extreme financial highs and lows, and but when they're down, they don't stay down for long. So they have this thing, okay, I lost all my money, it's okay, I'm gonna be able to get it back, right? They're not like, oh, I lost, like the alchemist, if they lost their money, they're just like, oh my God, I mean, not the alchemist, the accumulator. But not that it won't hurt the Maverick, but there's that thrill seeking, that there's a high for the Maverick. And so that can often lead to a flamboyant lifestyle, but they also have some secrecy around money. So the Maverick's challenge is their excitement at winning big at the money game can often take them to the point of financial difficulties, right? So they could lose everything, a Maverick, but they're willing to do it. And that's kind of cool when you think about it. So remember, strengths and challenges, like that you believe in something so much that you're willing to risk it all. How many businesses have you heard of where they gave everything and their business is thriving and successful and it's really making the impact that they wanted their business to make in the world? Okay, so our last archetype is your celebrity, which is your inner big shot. And the celebrity is often a charismatic personality that makes them a magnet for attracting amazing people and experiences. Some celebrity archetypes, they keep their star power hidden or under wraps. Like there's a part of them that doesn't want that much attention, but it's something that they naturally exude. So you probably see this in class or on campus or different communities that you're a part of, that people just kind of someone walks into the room and everyone's like, well, what are they doing? Who are they? Celebrity, right? They love to create a lot of attention for themselves and for others. And they appreciate the doors that money can open, and they love to turn on the bling. The celebrity can often be a natural born leader. So the challenge for the celebrity is that even though they're amazing at creating money or attracting good experiences into their life, they can default to spending every single penny that comes in and sometimes more. Yeah. Raise your hand if you think you're a celebrity. We got some celebrities in the room. I'm a celebrity. So it's not uncommon for celebrities to have someone in their life who helps foot the bills for their generous lifestyle. And so even though outwardly they might appear confident, inwardly they may be compensating for having felt criticized or ignored or left out in their younger years, right? So the challenge for the celebrity is like, well, how can you express and demonstrate and express who you are without having to be flashy, without having to spend a lot of money? So I want you to just think about these different archetypes. Like I said, and I'll say it again, there's strengths and challenges to each. You guys are friends with different people that have these different characteristics, and you guys, like, you're drawn to people for different reasons. So we're just gonna take a few moments to do a little bit more writing. We'll take about 5 minutes here. Even though you don't know what your archetype is, based on what you heard, I want you to write down what you think your strengths are with money, what your challenges are with money, and what's one simple thing that you can do to change that. So we'll just take a few minutes here to do a little bit of writing on that. In what ways are you strong with money? Are you generous? Are you creative with your money? Do you really know how to stretch $10? Are you frugal with your money? Maybe you're paying for school yourself. Sometimes I'm so amazed when I talk to students and they tell me they're working to pay their tuition. And I think, oh my God, how are you doing that? It's quite phenomenal. So what are your strengths around money? We each have strengths. All have strengths around money. So everyone should have at least one strength on there. Well, actually, why don't you share with your partner? Share with the person next to you what you think a strength and a challenge you have with money. So why don't we open it up to share, like, what came up for you around the archetypes? What are your strengths around money? What do you think your challenges around money? And what are you telling yourself that you're gonna do to change that? You don't have to address all 4 of those questions, but those are just some prompts to invite you to share so we can all learn. Yeah. Well, so I just want you to recognize that you have the strength of being able to appreciate life. Like, do you get that?
Yeah.
Like, there's some people that in your life that you enjoy being around all the time. Like, they just bring happiness, they bring joy. They're like, let's go do something fun.
It's like
Or
when I'm in the moment.
yeah,
And when I'm getting into the moment, that's when all hell breaks loose, is gone.
yeah.
The next moment, I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. So that might be the challenge. Not necessarily that you're that you want things, that you like the pleasure, but you're just like, oh, there's a part of you that now has decided, like, I'd like to start stacking my nuts, right? And so maybe you decide that this is how much I'm going to spend, right? Like, I'm going with a list to Target. I'm clear, these are my 8 items, and then I'm running from the store. No, I'm kidding. But beautiful. Did you guys hear that? So he no longer uses his card. He says he brings out a specific amount of cash with him, and that's what he's allowed to have full fun and play with, right? Beautiful. Anybody else? All of these archetypes are really fascinating. So it's just first, like, honoring the strengths of being a maverick, that you just know how to maneuver, you know how to network, you know, it's a game, you know? I'm just thinking of, what's that movie with Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, right? And so Lawrence Fishburne's talking to him. He's like, okay, you're gonna run fast, you can't look left or right, you're gonna run fast, and like, otherwise the door is gonna shut. And so, like, that's the energy of the maverick. So the strength of that, so when I hear you saying, like, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna get my degree, I wanna buy a house in the Bay Area. So the reason why I said here, what's one thing you can do to change them? Once we become aware of our challenges, once we know what our goals are, right? Because how is she gonna achieve getting a house in Berkeley if she hasn't decided that that's her goal? But the maverick can take it on as a game. It's like, well, do I know anyone in Berkeley that didn't think that they could purchase a house in the Bay Area, and they actually did? I do. I know quite a few people. They went to a house buying program, And actually, I'm thinking of a friend who bought a house in Oakland and didn't think that she was going to be able to do it, right? And so you have that Maverick energy on your side where Lawrence Fishburne's like, run, 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 don't look back. And then the door closes behind you. And so that's the strength that you have of your archetype. And then the challenge is like, just like you said, you're like, I'm getting older. So when she says I'm getting older, I also want you to know that we mature. The reason why we're learning about these archetypes is so that we can mature into the highest, if you want to say, vision of our archetype, right? So it's like we're kind of killing off the things that don't support our archetype. So now that you know the Maverick has a tendency to lose it all, and you're at a stage in your life where you're like, you know what? That doesn't feel good to me, but this is what does. So again, I'll be telling you how you can take the quiz so you can really be mindful as you're, making choices. It's like, okay, is this the part of am I operating from my strength in my archetype or the shadow? So he brought up a great point. Like, we're at a place right now where there's so many natural disasters happening, right? And so I actually had a friend that was living in Florida, and she had the money to come back to Oakland. She has a house here, and this is where she's from. But again, it's this topic of how much of our decisions and our choices are limited by money, right? And so he's like, okay, well, I'm feeling really good right now, but if there were a natural disaster. And so I love that you brought that in, because it helps us all put that awareness, like, to ask that question, like, am I prepared or equipped for a natural disaster? It's okay if you're not. Like, this is all inquiry, right? So it's like, well, what would I do if an earthquake hit, the East Bay? A serious earthquake that left people homeless, and like, what would you do? And so unfortunately, like, that's a reality that so many people are facing, like, all around the world. And so the natural disaster doesn't exist in isolation. It's very much connected to money. Like, how quickly will not even just cities or states rebuild, but how will families rebuild their lives? It's a very real question. Thank you for putting that into the room. Part of the reason why we're having this discussion, it's like, once we can start creating these dialogues around money, you probably have people in your life, even in this room, who are like, oh, this person already does bookkeeping. Can they show you? Similar to any of the other tools that you need at school, like, there are probably students who are coming to college for the first time and they're not good with computers. Yet there's a student in there, lots of students who are really great with computers. And so the more that you can have these conversations, you'd be amazed who around you can support you, right? And this is a goal that you just spoke out loud. I want to invest. I want to prepare for my future. I'd like to be prepared for a financial disaster. So it's not, why aren't you investing? Why aren't you saving? Do you have enough money for a natural disaster? No, it's like, oh, awareness, right? I'd like to be someone who invests. How do I get started? Can someone recommend some books? Are there investment clubs? Maybe I'm gonna see if there's a Facebook group on investing on Facebook, right? How do I Google how to save, how to bookkeep? Like, we're living in an age of, you can type in Google, YouTube, how to do anything. And what are the resources here on campus? Talking to your instructors, how do I maybe you start an investment club here. Maybe you start a money club here at College of Alameda, and you begin to start having these conversations. So I just want to mirror back to you that you have a goal of being an investor, that you have a goal of being someone that prepares and plans for the future. So now that you know that, then it's, what do I do next? What's one thing I can do, not even necessarily to change that, what's one thing that I can do to move in that direction? So I'm hearing a lot of goals here, even though you might not be stating it. Anytime you say I want, that's a goal. So the only thing that is gonna make it a goal is saying, okay, by when you set a date to it. Like, I'd like to read one money book by the end of the year, by December 31st, right? A goal is a desire with a date on it. He brought up two great points that I love. So one, he said he believes that we're all here to be stewards, right? So stewards, great stewards of money, great stewards of land. You know, so you can take that on. That like, what would it look like to be a good steward of money? Like, what would I do if I were really good with money, right? And he also believes that he's an accumulator. And I just hear a lot of gratitude. There's some gratitude and reverence. I don't know if reverence is the word, but that there's some respect for money, right? So like when we talked about earlier that we have a relationship with money, most of the times when people are talking about relationships or complaining about relationships, they're often complaining about respect, right? And so money's an inanimate object. I mean, we use it, but that might be something that you want to explore. Like, am I respecting money? Do I believe that money is something you could respect? What would it look like if I respected money? Inquiry, you know? And some of you might think that, well, that's nothing to respect, but what would it look like for you? And again, we talked earlier about that it's very personal. But I like that you brought up steward, you know? Like, what does it look like to be a steward of this, a good steward of this campus, you know? A good steward of money. Awesome. So I want to thank you all for sharing your insights, for doing the writing exercises, and one of the ways that you can experience more abundance, more wealth, more money now in this moment is a practice called gratitude. And so you may have heard the statement that gratitude turns what we have into enough, right? So anytime we take a moment to be honestly grateful about what we have, you just start to feel full, right? You start to say, like, so you could be like, I don't have enough money. Then you start to say, wow, I'm grateful to be a college student. I'm grateful that my school puts on events where I can learn about money or other topics that they bring here. So what I would like us to complete with, since there's enough of us in the room to put our voice in, one thing that you're grateful for, and I'm gonna start, and I'm grateful for this workshop today and getting to connect with you and hear your stories and see you really take some time to explore your relationship to money. So thank you so much for your participation and letting other people learn from your experience. I'm not just saying that, like when you say it out loud, not everyone is gonna raise their hand and speak, but they're like, oh, that sounds like me, or I never thought about it that way. Oh, I didn't know that people who have more than one house could feel tension. Or like, wow. So it's such a gift when you share. We talked about the Sacred Money Archetype quiz, and this is how you can take it if you want to take it. My website is bloomingtoyou.com, where you're going to do /quiz to take the quiz. It's electronic, so you can do it on your phone. And then it's the top 3 archetypes that are most influential. I also have an audio training on the website. If you feel like you want to learn more about the archetypes, you can. But if you just want to take the quiz, just go to bloomingtoyou.com /quiz. So if there are, I'll just see if there are any final questions, thoughts, comments before we complete and close our time for today. Yes. This is a brilliant question. So he's like, well, if I'm not happy with mine, I'm changing it, right? So many people wonder, like, if they take the archetype quiz, does it change? So I would say answer the quiz thoughtfully. And as you're answering the questions, you're not just thinking about where you are today, but you're looking at how you've been throughout your life, right? And so, like I said, every archetype can make money. Every archetype has strengths and challenges. So the gift for you is, what do you think your archetype is? Okay. So you maybe can see might be the ruler or potentially the romantic or the celebrity. So there's strengths to each one. So the point of learning the challenges of your archetypes is to see if you're acting out, right? So once we have awareness, we can say, oh, like now that I know that I'm a romantic, I just spend all my money. Then you can do the inquiry, is that what I want? You told me you want to invest. So the questions then become like, well, if this is what I want to create, are the actions that I'm taking in alignment with that? And if not, you get to choose to do something different. So no archetype is better than another. So you're not going to see the test. And sometimes we have archetype envy, and you're like, ooh, I want to be an accumulator because I want to stack my chips. But it's just a matter of like, okay, what is it that I appreciate about the accumulator? They save. Oh, okay, I want to learn how to save. How much money do I want to save and by when? And how am I going to start doing that now? And so what you want is you're just going to mature in your archetype the more you learn about it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think a professor once told me, he said, it's not negative, it's only negative if you make it negative.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we bring the challenges to awareness, then we can say, oh, okay, that action is not going to help me create the financial goal that I want. It's being nice. You got to be nice to yourself through this process. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to rein that activity back in. Any other final thoughts or questions before we complete?
I just want to say thank you very much for all this goodness.
You're so welcome.
You provide the teaching and for feeding us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys fed me too. So
Appreciate it.
I'm wishing you so many blessings on your money journey. If there isn't a money club here, one of you could start one. And Miss Peterson's so resourceful. Like, ask her what money book that she recommends, and you guys could start a book club on money if that's of interest to you. So best wishes this semester. Take the quiz if you want to find out your unique archetype. All right.